Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches! It's
Coming up today on GrokTALK, we welcome presidential candidate Carly Fiorina back to the program. We've also got Tim Wigley from the Western Energy Allaince on energy and the EPA's Clean Power Plan. New Hampshire Rep. Leon Rideout joins us to talk about his race for the New Hampshire State Senate, and former New Hampshire House Speaker and current New Hampshire Rep. Bill O'Brien has some thoughts to share about the 2016 U.S. Senate race, as well as the upcoming legislative session.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, TheRockNHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
GrokTALK.
Former New Hampshire House Speaker Bill O'Brien called a meeting of conservative House members and activists this past Wednesday night to discuss finding a candidate to mount a campaign to replace Kelly Ayotte with a conservative Republican. The focus of the meeting, which was supposed to be kept secret but was leaked to the press, was to try and identify a single conservative candidate to challenge Ayotte in a primary. Readers of GraniteGrok.com will be familiar with our chronicling of her descent from first-year Tea Party senator to rhino stooge. This decline in principles has seen Ayotte support moderate and even liberal policy legislation on immigration, energy, taxes, and spending. Former New Hampshire House Speaker Bill O'Brien will be on this program later this morning to discuss the need to primary Senator Ayotte and to update us on the progress, if any, in identifying a candidate to do just that. Manchester held elections last Tuesday, and we'd like to congratulate our friend and occasional guest, Rich Gerard. Rich ran for and won a seat on the Manchester Board of School Committee. But the big race was for mayor. Mayor Ted Gatsis won his re-election bid as well, but only by 85 votes. Democrat challenger Joyce Craig has asked for a recount in what turned out to be a very high turnout election. We can't help but wonder if Craig lost because of earlier efforts by folks like Rich Gerard, Ed Nail, and to some degree GraniteGrok.com, who pursued and reported on nests of out-of-state voters cluttering up Manchester's voter checklist. These pursuits prompted Manchester City Clerk Matt Normand to verify thousands of eligible voters in the city, and a move that resulted in the removal of pages of current and former Democrat campaign operatives or their fellow travelers listed as living and registered in the city, but who had long since moved on to mess with other people's elections in other states. New Hampshire native Trish Reagan of Hampton will be a moderator in the first of two GOP debates Tuesday, this according to Doug Alden reporting for the New Hampshire Union Leader. Growing up in New Hampshire, the paper reports, Trish Reagan learned early how seriously Granite Staters take their role in the presidential campaign process. Next week, Reagan will become part of that process as a moderator in the first of two debates with candidates vying for the Republican nomination. It's a tremendous honor, Reagan said Friday. I'm very excited to play a role in this conversation about the fiscal future of our country. Reagan, host of The Intelligence Report on Fox Business Network, is one of three hosts for the 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time debate Tuesday, which features four candidates who did not make the cut for the Fox Wall Street Journal primetime debate to follow. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteGrok.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. In accordance with Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, some of the material in this program is used under the Fair Use provision of federal copyright law. Sound effects were either created by the producers of the program, found free in the public domain, or are covered under Attribution 3.0. Most of the music on this program comes courtesy of Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is GrokTALK. We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
Talk.
Good morning.
There you go.
Good morning, man. This is Mike Rogers and Steve McDonald.
We're ready to start our interview.
Steve's ready to bring you in. So.
You all set?
Okay, yeah, we're all set.
All right, here we go. Good morning. Good. How are you? Good. Where are you calling us from today? Franklin. Excellent. Well, welcome back to GrokTALK. We haven't had you on for a while. We wanted to get you back in the show. Have a little discussion about this presidential race thing that's going on. When we turn the, I think we got one. Yeah, we got a crowd of people. We got the debates. We got undercard debates. We got all kinds of things going on. Lots of people want to talk about a lot of things. I want to start with the thing I always hear from people who aren't supporting you when they talk about you, and that's the whole 30,000 employees meme. And it occurred to me, as a person who's actually had to take a business and an operation as an executive and do something with it to make it survive and to be viable, that you made hard choices. Now, I talk to a lot of Republicans, and they're all pretty much small government people. Isn't it a good thing that you're able to, maybe cut something like, say, government?
one of your suggestions in making government simpler involves reducing the tax code and dealing with the IRS. Can you briefly explain that to our listeners, please?
That's really broken, and I heard what you said 3 pages. You know, it always amuses me. Obamacare's over 2,000 pages. The British National Health Service, not that I'm a great fan of it, was 47 pages. Would you actually favor closing a number of the agencies? I know you've indicated there's a huge amount of duplication, but just closing some and letting the states run their own affairs.
What do you see right immediately in the executive? You know, we've added all these czars and all this sort of garbage that goes on there. Where do you cut there? I mean, do you walk in on day one and say goodbye, czars?
this is exactly the kind of thing that we like to hear. And I think correct in assuming that since all of these regulations and the orders from the White House that may have triggered some of them are in fact not caused by legislation, they can be undone by just the same way that they were created. Super. I do have a question for you in respect of, I think you're doing a pretty good job of defining yourself before they define you. What I've noticed is that your standing in the polls seems to depend primarily on your debate visibility, which you've done a fantastic job at. What else is the campaign doing to increase your visibility level to ensure that everybody that needs to know about your message is getting it?
All right, we're down to about a minute. How do people reach you? What are your social media tags and handles and things? And thanks so much for making time for us.
And Skip wishes he could be here today, but he has to go visit with his son, who's a vet. Skip is exactly in the right place. I'll catch up with the campaign at some point on the road in the next couple of weeks, try and do an in-person. Otherwise, keep up the great work, and we look forward to hearing more from you.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye. All right, Carly Fiorina. And people are sending me messages, and I'm working on this audio problem.
And guess what? After a complete reboot, we have Ustream. I'll be on live stream for 9 o'clock.
All right. Well, at least we'll have that going, because I am still having, those of you who are struggling to listen on the Spreaker feed, or maybe you're not, if you're not, send me an email, or send me a message. Send me an email at steve@GrokTALK.com and let me know what you're hearing. I am hearing some very loud output, and I'm having some trouble managing that output from my laptop. So it could be a laptop issue, it could be a software issue, it could be a hardware issue. But I'm having some loud music and some quiet voices. I had this problem last week. The recorded version, of course, is fantastic. Podcast comes out great, and of course you can always listen to the podcast after the show if need be. And again, we are also rebroadcast on the rocknhcr.com at 1 o'clock on Mondays, and we encourage you to give a listen then, because you'll get the edited podcast version, which is the full show, without the 5 minutes in the middle, because they have their own little 5 minutes at the top of each hour where they do their news. So always trying to accommodate everybody. Hopefully we'll get this resolved. Coming up in the next few months, I want to let you know that we will have a couple Saturdays where we will not be on the air because we always take those days off, the Saturday after Thanksgiving and the Saturday after Christmas. We do not do a program, so we will either put up a portion of a past program or we'll build a program out of segments from previous shows based on my time and availability, or something else. We'll figure something out either way, but we won't be doing a live show on either of those Saturdays. So right after Thanksgiving and right after Christmas. We will do a show right after New Year's because of where New Year's falls. So that's our changes to what's coming up in the months ahead. Not so far ahead, a little bit later, around 9:30. Tim Wigley from the Western Energy Allaince will be on the program. We're going to talk about not the TPP, that's a different issue. We're going to talk about the CPP, all these acronyms and all messed up. So the Clean Power Plan recently from the EPA that 26 state attorney generals have filed lawsuit against under the impression or the assumption that it is not within the EPA's power to actually create these force of law regulations. And of course we've written about it extensively at GrokTALK.com. Senator Carly Fiorina supported it, one of the latest of many exercises of supporter votes that really do go against what Republicans are supposed to stand for and defend.
You know, I would just
And
be, I would
your
just be happy
headset's not turned up because you're over there fooling around. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just be happy if the Republicans would do the little thing that Trump said when he signed the pledge. Support to the Republican Party and to the conservative principles for which it stands. Or, put another way, read the darn platform, please.
Yeah. All right, we also will have Leon Rideout, who's a New Hampshire rep from way up north. He's going to be running for the New Hampshire State Senate, and as I said, I believe it's District 1, and we'll have him on the program by phone to talk about the race and the issues up there. And then former Speaker Bill O'Brien, William O'Brien, will be in the studio with us in the last segment to talk about, well, Kelly Ayotte, the New Hampshire Senate race, the U.S. Senate race, and we may find some time to talk about some legislative priorities and some issues and some bills that are coming up in the next session, things that are going on. Why are you over there?
Because I'm not sure I got everything turned on right now.
Oh, is it up? Is it up over here? We see a lot of this technical stuff.
We're amateurs, man.
Yeah, we are.
We do other stuff the rest of the week.
It's like Blair Witch Project with audio every week. So it's very shaky cam.
No, we actually have 1.5 channels of audio.
Okay, that's good.
I think the other channel's got more noise on.
We got a little bit of music here, maybe that'll
guy. He did a good job as governor. You know, we may not appreciate some of his recent positions, but he's a good job as governor. He's a really nice guy, and he seems to be standing there saying, man, things are different since I was running for governor. What's happening to me? Well, that's just the way it is. This is a very unusual season, and it's being brought about largely by the Republican leadership, which has caused a complete uproar and uprising in the grassroots base. It's why Trump's doing so well. It's why Carson's out there. It's why Ted Cruz is riding high. Why Carly Fiorina is well up there in the same general range of the polls, and why the establishment picks are dropping one by one. You know, Jebb's not making much traction. Walker fell out. Perry, sorry for him because he was a good guy, fell out. And Kasich isn't doing as well as the establishment would like him to be doing. I got a great segment off of the Journal editorial report last weekend where they were discussing his debate performance, where he gets on stage and he's all angry about your 10% tax. How can you run the government on that? You guys have no clue. You need an experienced professional.
How can you run the government on that? That's too much.
Yeah,
you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And so they analyzed him and figured that was a deliberate ploy, and then said, his basic problem is not only can a low flat tax work if it's structured right, but also he goes and touts his experience as a conservative who can get things done, and then he lays out his liberal policies, and how the voters supposed to know what they're getting?
Oh, yeah.
I think that the Republicans, I don't believe that he's going to catch much traction, even though the establishment's going to probably be pushing him and Rubio, but I think he's going to go to the wayside.
He's basically got one supporter, the Sununu family, who I think did not pick wisely. So,
Correct.
John H. is saying he doesn't understand the electorate anymore. No, it's just the electorate's not listening to you anymore, sir. They've got fed up of people that go to Washington that you and they promise will fix things, and they don't. And Kasich,
I'm going to cut you off because we're going to go into our next segment.
May or may not have fixed Ohio, but he doesn't look promising for the country.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
Coming up today on GrokTALK, we welcome presidential candidate Carly Fiorina back to the program. We've also got Tim Wigley from the Western Energy Allaince on energy and the EPA's Clean Power Plan. New Hampshire Rep. Leon Rideout joins us to talk about his race for the New Hampshire State Senate, and former New Hampshire House Speaker and current New Hampshire Rep. Bill O'Brien has some thoughts to share about the 2016 U.S. Senate race, as well as the upcoming legislative session.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, TheRockNHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime, on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
GrokTALK.
Former New Hampshire House Speaker Bill O'Brien called a meeting of conservative House members and activists this past Wednesday night to discuss finding a candidate to mount a campaign to replace Carly Ayotte with a conservative Republican. The focus of the meeting, which was supposed to be kept secret but was leaked to the press, was to try and identify a single conservative candidate to challenge Ayotte in a primary. Readers of GraniteGrok.com will be familiar with our chronicling of her descent from first-year Tea Party senator to rhino stooge. This decline in principles has seen Ayotte support moderate and even liberal policy legislation on immigration, energy, taxes, and spending. Former New Hampshire House Speaker Bill O'Brien will be on this program later this morning to discuss the need to primary Senator Ayotte and to update us on the progress, if any, in identifying a candidate to do just that. Manchester held elections last Tuesday, and we'd like to congratulate our friend and occasional guest, Rich Gerard. Rich ran for and won a seat on the Manchester Board of School Committee. But the big race was for mayor. Mayor Ted Gatsis won his re-election bid as well, but only by 85 votes. Democrat challenger Joyce Craig has asked for a recount in what turned out to be a very high turnout election. We can't help but wonder if Craig lost because of earlier efforts by folks like Rich Gerard, Ed Nail, and to some degree GraniteGrok.com, who pursued and reported on nests of out-of-state voters cluttering up Manchester's voter checklist. These pursuits prompted Manchester City Clerk Matt Normand to verify thousands of eligible voters in the city, and a move that resulted in the removal of pages of current and former Democrat campaign operatives or their fellow travelers listed as living and registered in the city, but who had long since moved on to mess with other people's elections in other states. New Hampshire native Trish Reagan of Hampton will be a moderator in the first of two GOP debates Tuesday, this according to Doug Alden reporting for the New Hampshire Union Leader. Growing up in New Hampshire, the paper reports, Trish Reagan learned early how seriously Granite Staters take their role in the presidential campaign process. Next week, Reagan will become part of that process as a moderator in the first of two debates with candidates vying for the Republican nomination. It's a tremendous honor, Reagan said Friday. I'm very excited to play a role in this conversation about the fiscal future of our country. Reagan, host of The Intelligence Report on Fox Business Network, is one of three hosts for the 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time debate Tuesday, which features four candidates who did not make the cut for the Fox Wall Street Journal primetime debate to follow. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteGrok.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. In accordance with Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, some of the material in this program is used under the fair use provision of federal copyright law. Sound effects were either created by the producers of the program, found free in the public domain, or are covered under Attribution 3.0. Most of the music on this program comes courtesy of Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
3, 2, 1.
I'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
thing. Wow, that's pretty cool. So, all right, it is the first segment. Dun, dun, dun. I don't have the music queued up.
Speak amongst yourselves for just a moment.
Speak amongst ourselves while you...
I attempt to MacGyver something with our phone connection because the little retaining clip has fallen off one end of our handset cable.
Oh, lovely.
And I want to make sure that I don't disconnect myself as I nearly did when speaking with Carly Fiorina. That was
all right.
Little retaining fastener.
Ingenuity.
So you have engineers laying around, you need to keep them handy
Yeah.
just in case something breaks. And this is GrokTALK, so something always breaks. You know, bubble gum, duct tape,
We are
paper clips,
We're ready.
baling wire, whatever's handy.
Yeah.
Elastic bands.
Elastic bands have
Oh, I
always
see.
been a staple of this program.
Oh,
So,
thinking of staples, what was that about weapon control and
Oh.
staplers?
staplers, yeah. That was,
And then you finished it with that was easy.
Yeah, that was easy.
I was rolling on the
Whereas
ground
there-
groaning over that
It's
one.
funny. Well, you know, here I am. I had a couple minutes. I haven't been blogging as much.
Somebody
And I
pulled,
came across this article on Drudge.
I saw it.
Southbridge, Boston, middle high school, locked down Wednesday afternoon after students reported seeing a weapon. The building was put into shelter-in-place lockdown and no weapon was found.
No.
Sources tell WBZ that a student was waving a stapler and other students thought it was a gun. Now the title of this post is, "Why should almost everyone have at least some basic firearms training?"
Oh.
And then there's a picture of a stapler, and the caption reads, "The Bostitch semi-automatic tactical stapler in black, because that's just so much scarier. 3 box of ammo with any purchase, not shown. Way too scary."
Yeah.
It's a stapler.
I know.
It's a stapler. It
We're
reminded
so
me
crazy.
of when I interviewed Janine Notter because she dropped her cell phone in the House chamber, and one of the Democrats sitting next to her goes, "Is that your gun? You know what a gun looks like?"
No.
What is wrong with this stapler?
No, they don't. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, you talk about high schools and guns. I mean, you know, 20 or 30 years ago in America, the teenagers would especially in rural areas, would show up in their pickup trucks with their gun rack on the back, and nobody would give it a second thought. And the crazies wouldn't dare come around either because they knew that 50 kids would go out and grab shotguns immediately. You know, you think that Britain is totally disarmed. Well, you know, in the 60s when I was in the equivalent of high school, we had an armory at the side of the playground, an armory. Okay, with a
How
couple,
far they've come.
with a couple of trained, teachers as military officers. They were reserve military officers, and a cadet force. And some of the armorers were kids from 16 to 18 in the upper years of high school, and were completely proficient in maintaining the inventory, making sure everything was kept track of, making sure everything was signed in and out, making sure all the guns were cleaned, everything was locked up, and the steel door was properly secured at the end. You know.
We're
And-
so
and-
far away
and
from
you
that.
had
if you
wait,
would've-
let me guess. You had all kinds of shootings and trouble.
Yeah.
No.
None at all.
None at all.
Except in rural areas when we went out to the range and were shooting stuff at 100, 200, 300 yards.
Yeah. I mean,
With
it's
Lee
that
Enfield.
big. Did you guys see that news article, the article that came out this week about a woman that was, I forget what state it was, but she was feeding her 4-month-old baby upstairs, and a guy comes in and, or I think it was 2 guys, kick in the front door. They were armed, and she was upstairs, and fortunately she was armed as well, and shot. You know, here they have this firefight in the house. She was wounded twice, but she fought them off. I mean, you know, they left. Before she called 911, she goes up and checks on the baby, makes sure the baby's okay, and I guess she's in the hospital with an abdominal gunshot that, you know, she'll be fine, they said, but it turns out that she was like a, what are they, it's not ROTC, what's the other, when you volunteer, isn't it?
Oh, National Guard.
Yeah, I think she was a National Guard gal, and, you know, had a gun, and these guys walk right into the house and start shooting away. I mean, what are they talking about? Whenever you start seeing all this fear, especially, you know, women, oh, you know, we should be afraid of guns. What would that woman have done with a 4-month-old upstairs without the gun?
Exactly. Although she'd have probably gone Mama Grizzly on him anyway.
Yeah, I probably agree. Don't, you know,
No,
screw
no,
with
no,
mom.
no,
But
So much damage you can do with furniture. I mean, when you have 2 guys.
Yeah.
No.
it's true, but you know what? There is something to be said for the fact that there are moments. I mean, having been mugged 3 times now, there is something to be said at the moment that you go through this alternative universe, at least I did, where it must have been like the rush of the adrenaline comes in, and yeah, I would listen. If somebody was at risk, don't bet against the mom.
No.
Don't do it. I really believe that. You know, unless you're someone that, you know, the mom is superior in passivity. You know what I mean? Just a passive person. Usually, a mom with a baby or with a youngster there will fight to the death to save the kid, which is the way it should be, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
GrokTALK.
Guns and this initiative, these UN stuff that Obama is, and the executive orders that he's threatening. You know, people got to start really paying attention to this. I got in the inbox.
Well, you know, don't declare what you got, never register it, and shoot to kill anybody who comes to get it.
That's the theory.
Especially if they got a blue helmet.
Yeah, especially if they have a blue helmet. But right now, evidently, there's a congressman in what was it now? It must have been Arkansas. I can't remember now what state. Somebody sent me an email that she sent to a constituent talking about how hard Obama is working behind the scenes through all the political places that he possibly can get support to do an executive order, trying to find out who would support it, who wouldn't, on the Second Amendment. And, you know, you have to start to wonder. Look at what's happening in Europe with the invasion. Yeah. It's an invasion, because when you have groups of people in that number that come in without any desire to assimilate into the culture, it's no longer immigration, it's an invasion.
And the people have realized that. The Hungarians are cheering their prime minister or president, who wasn't particularly popular before, because he actually put up a fence, a serious fence with multiple layers, and the invaders are having to go around Hungary.
It doesn't matter anymore, though. They're coming in. I mean, this week Austria for the first time put up a fence on the border, and they're coming through the fence in droves. These countries are not able to absorb this kind of... Well,
millions of Austrians are going out and buying shotguns or whatever else is legal to defend themselves in their homes. You know, next step is you say, I need volunteers at the border ready to shoot to kill.
Well, that's your first tier.
There'd be 1 million of them there right away.
But I don't see that as the ultimate thing that's going to bring it all down. Once these immigrants are in these communities, don't forget, they're having children 3-4 times at the rate of the people in these countries. I mean, Europe is like 2.1 kids.
No. They're way less
than
that.
Is it 1.2? 2.1, 1.2?
Germany's completely upside down.
Yeah.
If they didn't have immigrants, they'd have no population growth.
But think about that. The Western culture is going down, and this goes so far beyond stopping them at the gates now, because in one generation, who is going to be left, except maybe the United States, to promote a Western civilization?
Very few of the others. I think the Brits are waking up if it's not too late. We have to wake up before it's too late here. We have to welcome in the right kind of immigrant.
Right.
You know, nothing against Latinos. We want lots of Latinos that want to assimilate. We don't want the Raza who want to be a separate race. We want the folks that want to come here and be American and work and participate in the greatest economy in the world. And we want them to come and speak English.
All right, we're going to take a really, really, really short break. Stay tuned. We will be right back. This is GrokTALK.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, TheRockNHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime, on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
GrokTALK.
90s, I'm sure it's still the case now, but the truth of the matter is when you look at that through the political mirror, political, whatever you're looking at there, and you go and you fast forward to today, what has happened to these countries that have lost their identity of any sort?
It's like a patient losing its will, their will to live. I mean, essentially, they've given up. They've thrown up their hands. They've turned up their toes. It's dead, Jim. Can we resuscitate it?
No, you're right. They have given up. So now what has happened? Hopefully, in looking this long range, you can only. Isn't this a terrible thing to say? That they're going to now have to wake up, because we know that Islam is not a religion. Islam is a political ideology. It's a way to integrate through these fanatical religious concepts a political way to oppress.
And that, I think, segues into, that is why I think the left has an affinity for Islam, because they're both belief systems. Socialism, the left, it's a belief system. You have to worship the state.
Right.
In Islam, you worship Muhammad, but Muhammad is the state. The state, c'est moi.
Right.
L'état, c'est moi.
Yep. No, you're right. So what's going to happen now with these communities that, first of all, we're going to be, it's like the song Imagine, that stupid Lennon song. I've always hated that song. I'm sorry. What a stupid utopian idea. First of all, it takes away the entire thing that our founders understood was that we're all flawed, some, less evil than others, but we're all flawed human beings. Imagine, quote, ain't ever going to happen on this realm. So why do we perpetuate the myth? So they let all the borders go. They became a union. Now there was no difference. We had to work as one people. We're all together in this blah, blah, blah. Now here, they're under attack.
And they're putting up border controls against each other.
Now what is that? So maybe in this whole dysfunctional, bad dream of Imagine, they'll have to start looking at what the flaw was all about, and maybe they can have a correction. Yeah. That's the only hope.
Yeah, I mean, they're still countries. Free movement of people and labor doesn't mean no border controls. It means you show a European passport of some sort. If I'm crossing from, say, Hungary into Austria, if I've not mixed up my geography, that may not be adjacent, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
If I'm crossing from one European country into a Central European country, and I don't have a passport issued by a European country,
right,
I'm automatically going to get stopped. Well, that doesn't happen right now.
Right.
They basically let people flow just about everywhere inside the European Union with no controls at the borders. Well, it's no different from Los Estados Unidos, the United States, where we have agreed as a common people not to have border control. But we established our more perfect union a little differently.
Well, we're supposed to have border controls. We just don't enforce any of them. Duh.
No, I'm not talking about the external border controls. We don't have any border controls between the sovereign states.
Oh, I got you. Within the country.
By agreement, because we have a commerce department which is to prevent any impediments to commerce, not what it gets used for today.
Right, within the country. Great, yeah. You know what? It's just a crazy thing. I remember when we were walking, when I would walk around in Vienna, I had to have on my person every day my passport and my papers. Because they could stop you on a Straßenbahn. They could stop you in the U-Bahn. They could stop you on the street and say, ask you where you're from. Because, you can't tell. When you live in a country, you can start to see the differences between even how people hold themselves. You can tell who is a Viennese and who isn't. And, they could stop you at any time, at least they could then, and say, they could fine you, they could throw you out of the country if you did not have your passport and your papers on your person.
Well, when I first came here as a legal immigrant with my paperwork, I was told that relatively minor infractions could get me deported. Now you can rape and murder and not get deported, and then they get all outraged when Donald Trump says so.
Yeah.
What is that?
How backward? It's just so backward. Hard to believe that we've come this far.
Working on problems. Sorry, didn't mean to be so quiet.
No, right.
Yes, it is not a pretty situation. And let's see what else we got to talk about here. We have a lot of things going. Oh no, I can't say it. Now there's another debate coming up. Is it next week?
There's a debate coming up Tuesday. So, folks, listen up, wake up. This is on Fox Business Network. Check your cable listing and make sure you get Fox Business. Where I am, it's on Channel 83. Your mileage may vary. But just make sure you get it so you don't miss it.
Didn't they say they're also going to play it on Fox News station?
Maybe no. Fox News doesn't carry it unless they've changed their mind. I looked at my program lineup. It wasn't advertising the debate on regular Fox News when I looked.
Okay.
So it's on Fox Business Network. So since it's not exactly a premium channel, but just make sure it's in the list you're getting, folks. The other thing that's different this time is that they've started to shrink the size of the debates and to put in a more formal cutoff. Now, some of the candidates are objecting to which polls were used. The RCP 30-day average is a little different from the 4 polls that were chosen. But the key thing is, we've gone from 10 plus 7 to 11 plus 5 after Perry dropped out to 10 plus 4, and now we're at 8 plus 4. And so the lowest performing on the main stage are now on the secondary stage. So Huckabee and Christie are now down there with Santorum and Jindal, and Kasich, not Kasich, I wish. Gilmore, I feel sorry for him, he's a nice guy. Lindsey Graham, I miss him, he's the funniest guy. And Pataki, Mr. Big, the tallest guy in the room. They're all nice guys, they're all funny guys, and they're no longer on the stage at all. And they're a little miffed about it. Pataki was recorded as saying, hey, come and find me, put up a podium in the middle of the park, I'll debate you anywhere. I will have to have him back on because he wasn't on very long, and he was a good guest. Alicia, if you're listening, bring the governor. He's welcome, he's funny, and we'll make sure he doesn't bump his head on the doorway.
Yeah, he makes for good radio. He does.
He does, but
he's
anyway.
a good speaker. He's a good communicator. Listen to him when he presents his ideas. He presents them in such a fine way that you almost start to like what he's saying, and then you start to think about the context, and you go, nah, I can't do that.
Yeah, and Gilmore started off a little bit indeterminate. The first interview we did with him at CNHT, I mean, that's a very distracting environment. He wasn't really focused. When we spoke to him again at the RLC convention. Oh, calling.
Our next guest is
calling.
And I'm going to put him on. He's going to have to wait a minute, but that's the only thing.
Hi there.
We're going to go take a quick break in a few seconds.
You got Mike Rogers, Steve's running the board.
After that, we're going to
thank you for calling. You're Tim Wigley, I presume?
I'm just kind of killing
Thank you
some
for
time
calling GrokTALK. You're a couple of minutes early. Steve's going to put you on so you can hear us, and we'll bring you in just a minute.
We'll bring him in just a minute. Just keep
all
on
right.
the phone for a couple more seconds. I'll take him off monitor. He can listen to this.
Okay,
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Why are you going to want to listen to GrokTALK? Because when it comes to politics, news, and the culture, we are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping, conservative bloggers and activists. GrokTALK comes to you live Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you missed us on Saturday, catch us on Monday from 1 to 3 p.m. right here on The Rock, NHCR.com.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Well, we're up here in New Hampshire, and of course we've been suffering under the yoke of RGGI for a long time now, so I'm very familiar with the effect of carbon trading schemes and the cost of electricity. New Hampshire is usually one of the top 5, or at least in the top 10 for cost kilowatt hour, cost per kilowatt hour. So one of the things that I was looking at when I was writing about the Clean Power Plan over at watchdog.org was that this plan actually includes a cap and trade scheme, which I don't think people realize, what this is going to do to the cost of electricity.
It's going to be on the backs of some of their constituents too, which is a really interesting thing. The unions are all bent out of shape over Keystone, which is good from our point of view. This thing costs jobs. It's mostly costing union jobs too, and it's hurting, as you say, the middle and working class, which again, a lot of those are union folks. Barack Obama is doing more damage to the Democrat Party than anybody else. Unfortunately, he's getting so far along with his agenda that it may not matter in the long run.
I have a question for you, Tim. My name is Jane Cormier, and my question is, you talked about when the citizens are going to start feeling this. What is the time frame for when this kicks in to when we will start seeing it on our electric bills? So will it be like Obamacare right now is imploding and the costs are going up? The further into it we go, you know, the higher the costs go. Is this going to be very similar where it'll be, you know, easy to perhaps look at the beginning because it won't be so much as it will maybe a year or two in? There you go. Yeah.
So one of the problems that, one of the other kinds of pain that people don't really see comes from the regulatory cost. And of course, the oil and gas industry in particular bears a tremendous regulatory cost. And people don't get it. It's tens of billions of dollars annually. Let's just take a kind of a hypothetical. What happens to the price of oil and gas, let's just say, if somebody were to cut even just half of those regulations?
And a quick word on fracking. Most of us have well water. Well, guess what? New Hampshire's on granite. How do you squeeze water out of a stone? My well company offers fracking for water.
That's it.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host.
How about sort of a two-part question? One, obviously, there's a lot of resources that we can't get at, which brings me to point two. It's all tied up on federal land. Do you see any? We always talk about there's a lot of federal land in New Hampshire, if you look at the map, it's scary how much of it is.
Absolutely.
Not anything like out west where the whole entire states are locked up by the federal government. But is there any movement in the states to do anything about the federal land monopoly? Yeah, because it's doing so much good there. We actually had a good friend of ours, Jerry DeLemus, who went out during the Bundy Ranch standoff, and he was out there actually leading the defense of the ranch. So we had a good interview with him. So just us, in this room at GrokTALK, we're very familiar with that situation. But again, it is bad. I think that you're absolutely right. There should be tours of Easterners, East Coasters who go out and then go, okay, try to go for a walk and don't step on any federal land. Good luck. It just. Yeah. Right. All right. Well, we got about a minute. How do people reach you or get in touch or help? All right, Tim. Thanks so much for taking some time.
Thank you.
You have a good weekend. Bye-bye. All right, thank you very much. A little update on energy, oil and gas. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back to talk about who the heck knows what, because it's GrokTALK.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK. GrokTALk.
Read what they write and follow the links and make a donation and say thank you.
And anything with a roof, internet service, and somewhere where
Some electricity.
electricity is palatial as far as I'm concerned.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
It works. It's our studio.
We need a table big enough for our junk. That's really all we need. All right, so we have a few minutes before our next guest comes on. Leon Rideout's going to join us from the North Country to talk about his race for Senate, his opponent, and some wacko Democrat lunatic from the left.
Who is it?
I forget. Is it Woodburn? Who's in Senate seat, District 1? I don't remember.
I can't remember. Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Might be Wood.
Is it currently a Democrat?
Yes,
Yes.
I believe it is. Well,
Okay.
why would Leon be running otherwise? Unless it was a horrible Republican, which is very possible. I apologize. That's
Yeah, we have
We,
one, don't
we, we should never overlook the possibility that it's a horrible Republican.
that's true, especially recently. Anyway, that's a good
And
topic.
even the ones that
Good
tell us
topic.
they're not, well, they don't always tell us the truth.
They don't, do they? That's why they're horrible. They're horrible. They
Yeah.
just it's been an interesting year.
Well, I
It's
mean,
an interesting year for horrible Republicans in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had majorities that don't mean anything.
They don't. They mean absolutely freaking nothing. You know,
Well-
and the news, like Tim was just talking about the elections again. You know, you have states. You have 37 states with Republican governors. 20 of those have complete Republican legislative control. They've been moving, to the right, and here in New Hampshire we have everything but the governor's office, and yet still these
Terrible.
losers promote Medicaid expansion. They promote the hands-free law.
Yep.
They promote all this crap that's on the Democrat Party's checklist
Right.
when they're in a position to prevent all of it.
Because it's too hard.
More spending. I mean, why would I elect a Republican who's going to do that?
well, I mean, you talk about our folks doing the Medicaid expansion and teaming up with the Democrats. Ohio was far worse. They had this Republican legislature and a Republican Governor Casey. And the legislature voted, they put forth a bill which would have made it impossible for Ohio to accept Medicaid expansion. The governor vetoed the bill and then got together with one of his small secret committees to accept Medicaid expansion anyway.
Yeah, and to actually, I think, accept it in a larger format than it was
Yeah.
originally being premised.
So it may as well have had a Democrat governor,
Ah.
and that's exactly why the folks on the Journal editorial report last Saturday said the voters don't know what they're getting, because he talks about being a practical, or is that pragmatic conservative, which
Yeah.
is whenever you hear the word pragmatic, remember it has its origins in Marxism. Pragmatism and Marxism
There you
go
go.
hand in hand. It's doing what's necessary to move the ball forward, basically. And when you've got a guy that talks about fiscal responsibility and balanced budgets, and the other folks being amateurs, and then advances his own liberal position, yeah, the voters wonder what they're getting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all that federal money that they took in with Medicaid expansion, right? It helped on the short end, right? The long end, we're watching Obamacare implode. I mean, you see article after article of everybody that's now finding out that even when they thought they were safe,
Everything.
prices going
Well,
way
well,
up.
well, I mean, my employer, healthcare, has way higher deductibles and it's less affordable than it used to be, and that's employer healthcare. Private healthcare plans went off the charts 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And every year I worry that it's going to become unaffordable to take care of our health, and that I shouldn't have to. I have good people that employ me that do the very best they can to give me a good plan, and the government keeps on trying to screw it up.
And I think that's why, and I believe that's why this was very specific and carefully plotted, that Obamacare wasn't the end game. The end game was national health care. And they get that by so making it expensive that people that were used to being covered can't pay for it anymore, and they'll now jump on the bandwagon saying, well, we need something.
We gotta fix it. We gotta
Well,
fix it.
you know, here's a topic that needs deeper investigation. So first of all, let me just say that Medicaid expansion is a case of the king's shilling. I'll get blank looks from the Americans amongst them.
Yeah.
In the not exactly medieval times, more like in the sort of 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, you manned your ships, especially your wooden ships, by press ganging people off the streets.
Mm-hmm.
You rounded up fit young men
Right.
in the pubs.
Oh, my.
And if you took the king's money, you were considered to be hired. And they got in the habit of buying drinks and putting it was silver in those days, a shilling, at the bottom of the glass. If you took your drink and you had king's shilling, you were rounded up by the rough guys, and you were in the Navy, boy.
Yeah.
And so Medicaid expansion is like that, because you take the king's shilling, and before you know it, you're press ganged into their service and servitude, because it's going to cost you in the long run. It's going to cost you a lot. There is no such thing as a free lunch. or a free beer, or free Medicaid.
We see the same thing happening with property rights, with regional planning commissions, where they're usurping local laws by bringing in this other, the state, the bureaucracy, because this is all bureaucracy growth. I mean, EPA, of course, not Obamacare, but bloating the bureaucracy and then putting laws into effect that are really going to hurt. Will always empower.
I think if the states jointly and severally passed state laws that said all administrative rules are null, void, and of no effect within our borders, that only an act of Congress judged to be constitutional will be considered as accepted law, those bureaucracies would implode overnight.
And they would, but you see that we are so behind in educating folks with states' rights. I've said it was the reason why I jumped in 2010, started paying attention and talking, because we every turn we think that the federal government is the big daddy, right? They're the big power base, and we have so neglected states' power. Why would any state give its power up to a bloated, corrupt federal government?
We're now 102 years into the usurpation of the rights of the states. And not that people like Alexander Hamilton didn't desire to do it from the outset with a national bank and means of dispensing favors, but that was kept under control until 1913, when we had the Federal Reserve, the 17th Amendment, and the 16th Amendment, and so on. And essentially, we flipped the relationship where instead of the states owning the federal government to do their bidding and defend the country, we now have the federal government owning the states by dispensing cheap dollars and buying favors and coercion.
But we can really make if we, just like you said, we get a coalition, even to start, a coalition of states. Wouldn't it have been great? I always maintained if we could, and I know it's a cabal, a progressive cabal. I mean, Maine's making a shot at trying to become conservative, and they're doing some good stuff up in Maine if you haven't been paying attention. But if you could get maybe New England states to, it would never happen with the Massachusetts.
It won't happen up here, but the 10th Amendment Center's been working really hard on educating people about the rights of states and trying to get, I think if you get a coalition of Western states, especially on this issue of federal land management, I think it's a huge issue for them. And obviously, Tim just explained to us the situation out there, which we were familiar with. But, you could really get a movement going where people are like, look, this is nonsense, all right? We're not gonna impose or enforce your goofy regulatory state. We're going to manage those things ourselves. Too damn bad.
Right. But what do you do with the kids in school? My kids know nothing about this. They teach nothing about this in school. So you have an entire generation that turns 18 that is oblivious to all of how little rights they have left, to how their government has stolen.
Certainly around here.
And even they are beginning to worry about what the federal government is doing to them. And whilst I don't agree with all of his policies, I applaud the way people like Jim Rubens went out to all the universities in the last round, for example, and getting the kids riled up over their individual rights. We need more people that are willing to do this, willing to walk into the lion's den and address the university crowd. The 10th Amendment Center, by the way, and I have been negligent, have brought out a new series of videos to help educate people about states' rights and some of the work that's being done.
Wow.
And I encourage the listeners to go to 10thamendmentcenter.com, spell it out, and look up some of the excellent work of Michael Baldwin and his cohorts, and we have to get him back on here. It's fabulous.
.com?
I'm pretty sure it's .com.
And you can go on and get can you have a video and then do
that's the word tense as well.
Okay. Can you actually take the video and then do a small group with it?
Sure, it's online. You can do it.
I think you can. It's online. I don't think there's any royalties for it. Of course, contributions are very much welcome because they run on a shoestring out of his apartment. They have volunteers around the country, and they have people in a lot of the legislatures. I was thinking of 10th Amendment, and states' rights are very much demonized by the left because it's the antithesis of what they want, which is central control. When Jack Kimball ran for governor and when he ran for the party chair, he was running, amongst other things, on a 10th Amendment platform. And that's part of the reason why he got demonized, because he's saying, we can do this stuff without Washington. We don't need these. We can reject these.
Right.
That's a good question, and I think I've asked this before, but you've reminded me of it. You want to, you have these local Democrats who want to be state senators and governors and stuff like that, and they're like always trying to be in charge. And you're like, well, what's wrong with you? Why can't you manage these things locally? You're incompetent. You can't run a state this. You can't run a state that. Your bureaucrats are incapable of managing these things at the state level. You have to farm it out to the federal government. What's wrong with you?
I mean, look at Hassan imploring all of the presidential candidates to get involved in our heroin problem. Not that there shouldn't be research and collaboration at the federal level, and I believe that's what federal agencies should be about: research and collaboration, clearinghouses. But why isn't our state taking action on our problems?
She's too busy running for office. She needs a CEO, so naturally. But it's the same point. What is it about you, Governor Hassan, that makes you incapable of managing this problem at the state level?
No, that's a brilliant point, and nobody has really brought that to the fore. We hear a lot of pissing and moaning out there, excuse my French, about what people are doing.
And at the same time, we're always like, well, we send more money to the federal government than we ever get back. Well, why don't you just keep it here and spend it if you're so damn smart?
That's really a really great point. We should find a way to put that out there, because that has never explicitly, in my experience watching all this in New Hampshire, ever been. I never thought of that.
Why don't we take more time to manage our own things? Before Steve makes the cutoff sign to my throat.
You got about a couple seconds.
Right. Why should the people in New Hampshire and throughout the East care about the fighting in California over the Delta smelt and the water? And the answer is, have you seen the amount of food inflation we've had lately? Do you know that some of the best farmland in the country is going dry, is turning to desert? Do you know it's just because liberals are making a fuss over a fish too small to see, practically? And do you know that if the state stood up and exercised its rights and said, we're sending out the National Guard to turn on these, the water to these farms, and we're going to stand guard over it, and if any federal busybodies come by, we're going to we'll fight and we'll lock them up.
Absolutely.
Because it's our state, it's our resources, it's our water.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I when Arnold was elected, I thought that's what was going to happen, because this problem's been going on since before Arnold was elected.
All right, now I'm going to cut you off.
Right.
But anyway, that's a good point, and it is food inflation. Anybody who's been in the grocery store and pays for these things knows. We will be right back after our top of the hour 5-minute news break. Stay tuned for Leon Rideout. This is GrokTALK.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
Coming up today on GrokTALK, we welcome presidential candidate Carly Fiorina back to the program. We've also got Tim Wigley from the Western Energy Allaince on energy and the EPA's Clean Power Plan. New Hampshire Rep. Leon Rideout joins us to talk about his race for the New Hampshire State Senate, and former New Hampshire House Speaker and current New Hampshire Rep. Bill O'Brien has some thoughts to share about the 2016 U.S. Senate race, as well as the upcoming legislative session.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, TheRockNHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
GrokTALK.
Former New Hampshire House Speaker Bill O'Brien called a meeting of conservative House members and activists this past Wednesday night to discuss finding a candidate to mount a campaign to replace Kelly Ayotte with a conservative Republican. The focus of the meeting, which was supposed to be kept secret but was leaked to the press, was to try and identify a single conservative candidate to challenge Ayotte in a primary. Readers of GrokTALK.com will be familiar with our chronicling of her descent from first-year Tea Party senator to rhino stooge. This decline in principles has seen Ayotte support moderate and even liberal policy legislation on immigration, energy, taxes, and spending. Former New Hampshire House Speaker Bill O'Brien will be on this program later this morning to discuss the need to primary Senator Ayotte and to update us on the progress, if any, in identifying a candidate to do just that. Manchester held elections last Tuesday, and we'd like to congratulate our friend and occasional guest, Rich Gerard. Rich ran for and won a seat on the Manchester Board of School Committee. But the big race was for mayor. Mayor Ted Gatsis won his re-election bid as well, but only by 85 votes. Democrat challenger Joyce Craig has asked for a recount in what turned out to be a very high turnout election. We can't help but wonder if Craig lost because of earlier efforts by folks like Rich Gerard, Ed Nail, and to some degree GrokTALK.com, who pursued and reported on nests of out-of-state voters cluttering up Manchester's voter checklist. These pursuits prompted Manchester City Clerk Matt Normand to verify thousands of eligible voters in the city, and a move that resulted in the removal of pages of current and former Democrat campaign operatives or their fellow travelers listed as living and registered in the city, but who had long since moved on to mess with other people's elections in other states. New Hampshire native Trish Reagan of Hampton will be a moderator in the first of two GOP debates Tuesday, this according to Doug Alden reporting for the New Hampshire Union Leader. Growing up in New Hampshire, the paper reports, Trish Reagan learned early how seriously Granite Staters take their role in the presidential campaign process. Next week, Reagan will become part of that process as a moderator in the first of two debates with candidates vying for the Republican nomination. It's a tremendous honor, Reagan said Friday. I'm very excited to play a role in this conversation about the fiscal future of our country. Reagan, host of The Intelligence Report on Fox Business Network, is one of three hosts for the 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time debate Tuesday, which features four candidates who did not make the cut for the Fox Wall Street Journal primetime debate to follow. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. In accordance with Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, some of the material in this program is used under the Fair Use provision of federal copyright law. Sound effects were either created by the producers of the program, found free in the public domain, or are covered under Attribution 3.0. Most of the music on this program comes courtesy of Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
It's not a tumor.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
So you have you're irritated with a lot of politicians then.
Kind of sort of like a senator that says one thing in New Hampshire and something else when she's down in D.C. Oh, sorry.
All right, so the has anybody else expressed any interest in running against Woodburn? Okay. Any names? Or just suppositions, speculations? Okay. Uh-huh. We don't even know who she is. I don't think I've ever heard her name.
I've never heard the name either.
No. Okay.
Is she in the State House right now?
Mm.
Okay. So her claim to fame is that. All right. That's good to know. Anyway, so again, we're not from the North Country. Obviously, Northern Pass is one of the many issues that concern people there, and we're just down here in the southern part of the state going, what's a big deal? What's a big deal? We don't know so much. We know where the North Country is. We go up there to be tourists and stuff, but other than that, I think there's a lot of things that go on up there issue-wise that most people down here in the southern part of the state aren't familiar with. What would you list as maybe the top 3 or 4 concerns for people in the North Country? I bet they are. I bet they are. I mean, it's not like you have. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Hi, Leon. It's Jane Cormier. I'm good. I have a question for you. I've been in the past years kind of looking at the North Country, and it's really, I think, a sad state of affairs to watch how little our state has done to assist growth in any category up north. But you know what? I hear that because the past decades have been so neglectful that the North Country has taken on a level of subsidy that's going to be very difficult to work with for a real conservative. So my question is, you're from the North Country and you know what's going on up there. When you go out and you campaign, how will you address this, the subsidy issue, and all of the really neglect that's been happening within the State House with regard to the North Country? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in other words, take away the subsidies, maybe take away some of the taxes and regulations, and let these people thrive. It always makes me wonder. You've got high cost energy. You've got all these ex mills. Wouldn't they make great little hydro stations?
Right. Mm-hmm.
We have RGGI, we have the RCP, we have all the regional rules and regulations, the power sharing plans, and all of these things. We were just talking to Tim Wigley, who's works for PAC, the Western Energy Allaince. We were talking about the new latest screw up, which is the Clean Power Plan, and how this will create a national cap and trade scheme, and all that does is drive the cost of electricity up. So we have Susan Olson, who of course has been building power plants, or built power plants for 30 or 40 years. She knows a lot about energy, so we're pretty well versed on the whole problem. And the errors in our ways have been going on since around 2005, 2006, when the Democrats got complete control of the state of New Hampshire, passed all these crazy environmental protection rules, and how you had to use 25% green energy, and how you had to, and of course they defined green energy without including at the time hydro and nuclear, which was completely ridiculous. And so the entire scheme is built on the premise that they get to decide what is what kind of energy and what isn't, and what counts and what doesn't, and then they build up this regulatory structure and this carbon credit scheme to support their premise. and it just drives up the cost of everything. I mean, everything that runs on electricity, including government, costs more money, and so that's got to change. And it's got to change not just because it's easier for you guys to use your resources, including wood and biomass, to create energy and create jobs, but because those businesses are paying those electricity rates. They're paying those higher rates. They're paying higher taxes for the regulatory state that's making the rates higher. And all things considered, it's a horrible, complex mess. We're going to take a really quick break, short break. Leon, stay on the line. We'll be right back. This is GrokTALK.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
dedication and the principles that you bring to Concord. We were all lucky that you're stepping up, Leon. Yeah, he's known for that, and if he just limit himself to those photo ops, then we could all just know that he's a waste of time. But he comes down here and votes at the same time, and his votes are awful. So, best of luck to you. Best of luck to your constituents, because if they elect you, they will be taking a step in the right direction.
So speaking of county government, people don't know much about county government in New Hampshire, I think, unless they're involved in government in general, and even people who are involved in government don't always necessarily know about county government in New Hampshire. The county government is made up of elected officials from the State House and Senate. Is that correct? Or the senators? I don't even necessarily know.
Yeah, so the legislature, in essence, for each county is described as the county delegation, and it's comprised of the state representatives from that county.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have county commissioners. They form sort of an executive function, and then the delegation forms a legislative function. At the local level, you can analogize it to, you have a board of selectmen, and then you have the town meeting. And the town meeting is the legislative group, the board of selectmen, and the executive group.
So you've been doing that for a while now. Leon, talk to us about your contribution to the county government.
And you know, Leon, this has always been one of the issues that I've been most concerned about, because we have a constitutionally mandated highway trust fund. In the Constitution, it's supposed to be dedicated to the highways construction and repair, and yet we've had it raided budget after budget. We find, for example, that money goes to the capital crimes unit of the Attorney General out of the Highway Trust Fund under some sort of vague connection that I guess you have to use the roads to get to a murder scene, so there ought to be some payment for it. We've had the State Teachers Association come in and make that exact argument that teachers and schools ought to be funded out of the Highway Trust Fund because teachers ride to school on roads. And so if in fact we would just dedicate that money, which comes from gas tax, to the purpose for which it's being raised, we wouldn't have to raise taxes at all. We could take care of the expansion of I-93. We could take care of the roads up in the North Country, which I know are very important to a spread out population. Yet the Democrats have found a way to raid that fund, as your opponent has voted for time after time, and then comes back and says, oh my Lord, we don't have enough money to maintain our roads, let's tax ourselves some more. The leaky bucket. Now you probably remember that leaky bucket that I had in the back of the state, the Reps Hall. Yeah, and the problem with dedicated funds is that they defeat budgeting transparency. There's dedicated funds all over the place. Some would surprise you. As a matter of fact, if you go to the legislative budget assistance or you go to the state budgeting authorities, you ask them how many dedicated funds are. They don't know. They seriously don't know. You know, the numbers come out different. You say, well, what about this one? I remember at one point I went to the governor's office and asked a question. He came up with a list, and I asked him, well, where's the Chief Justice book fund in there? And they go, he has one? And so, you know, it's just, it's lack of integrity. It really is.
So we really do not know how many?
We do not know. No, we do not know.
I have a suggestion, by the way, since you brought up that whole teachers need the roads thing.
Yeah.
Shouldn't there be like a tax on union dues to pay for that? You know, to pay for cops and firemen and teachers to get to and fro and for their defense and protection. I think we should add one of those.
Well, certainly a surtax on the wages of union presidents and union bosses.
That would definitely be very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somehow, Leon, I've missed putting a bill in for that. I should have thought about it. It's good talking to you, Leon. You bring up the best of ideas.
Yes, you're helping to stimulate us to new conversation. So, you want to get elected to the Senate. You want to get down to Concord in the other chamber, the softer chamber, I guess you might want to call it, because I don't know. Every time we see Republicans over there, I mean, we had some good luck last year. We got a couple folks in there who are much better on principle and platform, and we certainly need some more. Assuming you get elected, what do you see in the Senate as priorities?
which is totally takes everything that the progressives talk about with the fetal homicide laws, because the baby was outside the womb and the baby was living for 6 days, which shows you their argument is total garbage.
So the baby was viable, but they killed it anyway?
They didn't necessarily kill it, but they weren't able to obtain justice for the criminal act that happened that ultimately took the baby's life.
Excuse me.
So, okay, I missed that one.
It's a disgrace.
All right, Leon, we're out of time. I'm on a hard break. I've got to cut you off. How do people reach you? All right, Leon, thanks for taking time to talk to us today.
Thank you.
All righty, enjoy your weekend, sir.
Thank you, Leon.
All right, you too. All right, this is GrokTALK. We'll be right back. Really short break because we're going right to the intro, and then we'll be back.
3, 2, 1. I'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
someone who is a campaign conservative and then becomes a liberal when she goes to Washington. You know, we can go down the list of issues that are touchstone issues for Republicans. She gave us assurances that her principles would lead to the correct vote on those issues, and she hasn't been there. And moreover, her votes have been shocking. So, you know, what I'd asked is to get together with some groups of activists and see if there's general understanding of that and a willingness to step up with time and financial resources and hopefully a good candidacy to provide conservatives in New Hampshire, libertarians in New Hampshire, an alternative. Mm-hmm. So we had a meeting last week, and it sure seems there is.
Well, I was invited. I didn't have a chance to go, but I know Skip got there, and that was good. Good.
And Mike got there, and the 603 Alliance was represented there because we have a keen interest in statewide races after the presidential primary.
Mm-hmm. Sure, and what we did learn is that as a way to campaign in New Hampshire, what you do is you send out emails and say secret confidential, and that way it'll hit all the front pages of the newspapers, and we'll have the television station outside, your cameras and all that.
It was crazy. You know what? Nobody sent an email either anything about a secret meeting. It was exactly.
We should have painted over the windows just to drive them crazy.
Well, we waved. We had everybody turn around, the 60+ people, just go like this to the guys that were filming out the window. It's quite funny.
Yeah, but I remember back in 2010 when Kelly was first running, and I think if I remember correctly, Open Lamontagne was in the race,
And
Bill Binney was.
Bill Binney and Jim Bender.
Jim Bender, and so at one point Kelly the state rep in my third term, I think at the time, and she called up and said, Bill, will you endorse this? And I said, Kelly, I don't think you're conservative. I do think that Ovid is more demonstrably conservative on the right issues than you are. You've been an attorney general, and we've come to you time and again and asked you to address voter issues, voter fraud issues, and you've not given us the time of day. So I don't have great confidence if you go down there. But if you do get the nomination, I'll support you. And ultimately she did, and ultimately I did support her. But I didn't support someone who would vote to bring back crony capitalism in the form of the Export-Import Bank, which she did. I didn't vote for someone who would vote to extend the debt ceiling time and time again without putting any conditions of fiscal responsibility on it. And that's disappointed a lot of us. Those type of votes.
Yeah. My first choice was over. My second choice would have been Jim Bender, who's a great businessman.
Sure.
And Bill Binney was tarred with a somewhat liberal brush during that election, but my dealings with him since has shown that he's actually a pretty decent conservative himself.
He is. He's been a successful businessman and built up several businesses, and therefore he understands, I think, what allows for success in our society. What Kelly Ayotte understands is go become an attorney, get somebody to appoint you as attorney general, and then have a bunch of rich people finance your race, and tell the voters you're going to be a conservative when you get down there, and then become a more liberal vote than look at Orrin Hatch and Senator Graham and Senator McCain. If you look at Conservative Review's scorecard, she is among the worst of Republican senators down there.
She signed on with the establishment, it was clear. But for New Hampshire voters, all those things that you talked about and other votes that have been very, very bad for small governance and constitutional
states' rights
stuff. You know what killed me the worst is look at New Hampshire. I think we're in the top 3, if I'm not mistaken, with energy costs here in this state. I mean, we're getting killed. It's killing job creation like crazy. And here we have our senator going up there and supporting this latest EPA, bloated clean air.
The Clean Power Act.
What the heck is that? I mean, if there is anything that should be concerning New Hampshire, their constituency right now, is how much is that going to cost?
Well, I'm going to point to something else that's related, not just energy. There's a scheme in D.C. I voted for it before I voted against it.
Yeah.
Only they always tell you they voted against it. And I'm listening to Ted Cruz's book right now when I go on my walks, and it's a good book. And he mentions the absolutely venomous reception he got when he said in an organizing meeting about unanimous consent over a debt ceiling bill a couple of years ago, where essentially what the scheme is you vote to allow the Democrats to control the outcome. And then you can vote against the bill because the Democrats have won. And that was a particularly egregious case, which only took one vote to stop that happening, and then it makes your vote accountable because you have to be roll called. But but cloture's the same thing.
Yeah.
And you will, if you look at Kelly's missives over the past few years, she will tell you frequently she voted for cloture because she believes it deserves debate. And then she can say she voted against the bill which passed, which is what the Democrats wanted.
Yeah, it reminds me, and I think this is something that people have to watch out for from legislators, because it reminds me of one instance when I was talking to a Senate president in New Hampshire, in trying to convince the Senate president who should support a constitutional amendment to make unconstitutional a direct tax on wages and salaries, an income tax. And he said, Bill, if we do that, then we've lost the campaign issue. We get to tell the people we'll vote against it all the time. I said, well, how does that serve the people of New Hampshire? Because at one of those times they're going to get a majority vote and have a governor who will sign it into law, just so you can get elected a few more times and have a campaign issue.
Wow.
So I think I agree we do see that among legislators, and to the extent, and Kelly Ayotte has been one of them, we find that happening in Washington. That's a disqualifier for continuing in office.
You know, that particularly says in terms of the of even the state house. So we talk about citizen legislators. We talk about the pittance that they're paid at $100 or $200 now, and aside from their special plate on their cars, they really get nothing else. So what is it that would cause a Senate president to want to be reelected over and over and over? There has to be other forms of payback in order to make it worth their while to maneuver like that, to actually be more worried about their own electability than doing the job right.
It's access to status and power. It's one thing to say you're not getting a salary up there, or you're getting a good salary in Washington, but it's another thing to say you either have status or you have power or you won't. I've seen up in New Hampshire, where we do get paid $100 a year, people hang on to positions of power in desperation because they want to feel they have the status and the influence, and that they're deferred to. Symbolic of that are the license plates, and it is kind of sad, but it's not sad, and it's very dangerous that people would put themselves in those positions just so they can continue to control the conversation, control people's lives. They enjoy that.
So behind the scenes, you know, during the last Senate run, there were people that were asking all the time, why did these senators spend? I mean, the guy that I ran against, Putin, ended up spending like $190,000 for the race. Right? Mm-hmm. Why would you have people back to that amount of money? And it's a good question. If there wasn't some sort of kickback, they kept saying it can't just be for the license plate. And you know what? I really couldn't answer to it. But logic does tell us it has to be more than just the license plate, doesn't it?
It's the status and the influence, as Bill said.
Okay.
And you know, why would those backers put that much money in? The answer is, like the Clinton Global Draft Initiative, it's what they can buy with it.
Right.
Sure. Which is his vote.
But the Senate doesn't get anything back, Bill?
The state senator. Well, you know, we saw that particular individual get a job paying $180,000 a year running a lobbyist group. Actually, he tried to do it while he was Senate president. Then he tried to continue in that while he was state senator, and then ultimately he left the Senate and continued in that job. Right. Look, at these positions on the state level can be important. On the federal level, they are very important. When you have a federal budget that is, you know, $1 trillion and more, clearly,
$3.5 trillion in some years.
Yes, clearly you're going to have folks who are going to pay to have their candidate win. One of the things I've talked with folks in Washington about this upcoming race with Kelly Ayotte, and one of the things they asked them, they said, you know, she's probably going to lose. If she's primaried, will there be a lot of money that comes into the race for or against her? Well, among the things I've been told is that she's Mitch McConnell's lieutenant. A Senate majority leader can bring to bear tens of millions of dollars on a race. Reach out to the K Street community, reach out to the lobbyists, and tell them, this is my lieutenant who is being challenged. And she will have tens of millions of dollars come into the race. And so, you know, no one has stepped up to this point, you know, but if someone does step up, they're going to have a lot of activist support in order to do it. On the ground.
But let's look at the other reasons. We can say, you know what, Kelly's not being a conservative to us. That's not the issue. There's something else, another dynamic at work here. We say that New Hampshire has a weak governorship, and it does in some ways. The governors can't really propose anything; they can only veto. And it's been really interesting to me to watch the stepping stone here as the mostly Democrat governesses have stepped on to the Senate, because the U.S. Senate is more powerful, carries more clout, more status, more money, more kickback than anything they can get in the state. And it's going to happen again. And it doesn't matter very much whether she gets primaries. She will lose. she will be replaced by a Democrat if she's not primary, because Hassan has got good base, good support, and the Democrats are absolutely desperate to get some pieces of the Senate back under their control.
I think I agree with you entirely. As I've talked to folks in Washington about the race, for example, in the media, yesterday I gave an interview to NBC News, for example, and as I talked to those who are thinking of funding this race one way or the other, I point out the fact that she has lost. She decided, mistakenly, to try to make a play for liberal votes that she would think would go to Maggie Hassan, the Democrat governor who's going to run against her. And as a consequence, she's lost a good portion of her base. It doesn't take much. And we saw what happened in the congressional race with Frank Ginter a couple of cycles back, in which a libertarian by the name of Brendan Kelly went in and you folks probably remember better than I. Was it 5 or 6%?
He got enough votes to keep him from winning.
And that was the amount of votes he received, which were clearly votes that would have gone to a Republican candidate, exceeded the difference between Congressman Ginter and his challenger. And that's going to happen with Kelly out. If you look at the polls, they're within 1 or 2 percentage points.
She's going to get Scott Brown.
More than that, I don't know if I'm able to mention who, but a libertarian group is willing to put up candidates to suck out those few percent to make sure she loses, because she's not considered worthy of a representative.
Which to me would be a strategy if there wasn't a clear choice that a constitutional conservative could make in a primary. But after that, you know, if there is a choice, that's not a good strategy.
Well, I think it's a foregone conclusion today that's going to lose. I think the base is going to do exactly what they did 2 years ago, in the last election cycle. They're going to work hard, and the discussions have already started. Yep. There will be a write-in candidate, whether it is a living person or not. There will be a choice, and it will be somebody other than Kelly Ayotte, and the base won't vote for her. I can tell you that right now. She cannot win this election in this state. So we're going to take a quick break and come back. We can talk about that some more. This is GrokTALK. Stay tuned.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
For them to hear, one I mentioned was the Exxon Bank. 80% of that bank, which ensures exports, go to one company, Boeing, and it's crony capitalism at its worst. The exports of planes will take place without the U.S. government having to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to
And
underwrite
Boeing
that.
has made it clear that they will be able to get export financing with or without the Exim Bank. They got enough leverage. They do good enough deals that they're not going to lose their shirts, and that people will lend them the money to do the deals.
And Jane mentioned another one, the EPA's Clean Power Initiative, which is a culmination of President Obama's policy to get rid of all coal-fired electric generating plants in the country. We do have, it goes back and forth, but among the highest, top 3 electric rates in the country in New Hampshire. We would assume our U.S. Senator would be concerned about that and try to protect us on the national level. Instead, she's helping President Obama to get rid of coal-fired plants. We have 500 coal-fired plants in this country. China brings on 500 a year. China and India together bring on 500 a year. That by 2030, they will have another, it's estimated 10,000 coal-fired plants if we try to get rid of our 500 plants. And double and triple our electric rate.
And at their level of technology, until it gets to the point where they're killing their citizens with the smog, and they're getting close, they're not going to worry about the pollution. They need the energy that badly. Whereas we do worry. We've already scrubbed our coal plants to get rid of the nitric and sulfuric oxides, the acid rain problem that was 30 years ago. We've got rid of a lot of the particulates. You can't get rid of the carbon dioxide, and by the way, plants thrive on it.
So the whole intent here is to fight man-made global warming, or whatever they're calling it these days, which clearly cannot be proven. Indeed, if you look at the most stable temperature readings, the satellite readings, temperatures are falling anything worldwide. So they're basically now Senator Ayotte with President Obama are trying to double or triple electric rates to solve a known problem. She just voted for a budget that raised the Social Security fund to the tune of $150 billion.
And yet the Democrats are always outraged at the thought of actually cutting Social Security, or even re-engineering Social Security to make it truly viable long term by gradually raising retirement ages or somehow restructuring it private accounts. They won't let any of that happen. They'll just keep up the pretense that it's going to keep going forever. Meanwhile, they keep stealing the money out of its so-called lockbox.
And the Democrats do it because every Democrat in the Senate voted for it. A majority of Republicans voted against it, and yet Kelly Ayotte joined with a minority of Republicans to get that passed. We all should be very concerned about whether we're keeping our promise to those who are approaching retirement over the next several years. And yet she's going to bankrupt. She's helping bankrupt the system and doing exactly what you talked about, Mike.
Yeah.
Keeping up the message that we won't cut any retirement funds, but meanwhile I'm voting to bankrupt the system. She's raised spending over the next budget $80 billion, violating all of the fiscal guidelines that put in place to bring down the deficit, which would start to do. She again campaigned as a conservative. She's governing as a liberal. She has voted for, advocated every vote that has come up to extend the debt ceiling.
And played procedural tricks to make sure that we couldn't defund Planned Parenthood as well.
She absolutely has. When the bill came up and she was asked to sponsor that bill, she refused to do it, and then did exactly what you said. That the final vote, which she knew that it would fail, she said, "Oh, I'm voting with it. I'm voting for it."
Now, knowing that McCain in 2008 lost badly, and basically lost badly by trying to appeal to the liberal middle, and forgetting the lesson which is retaught every 2 years, that the liberals are going to vote for the Democrat no matter what. They are not going to vote for the conservative. They're not going to vote even for a halfway conservative. You can appeal to them, and they can pretend to like you, but they're not going to vote for you. And McCain was the media favorite, and he wouldn't put up a decent fight against Obama, and he lost. So the moment McCain showed up in 2010 race to support Ayotte, I knew we were in trouble. and he hasn't got any benefit.
You know what? You're absolutely right. I want to point out the fact that you've just given us 4 or 5 talking points that are vastly important for people to know about. But the overreaching thing that people should be aware of was when you said campaign conservative. And why that is important to bring into the discussion is because the reason that we have no true party of conservatism in this country is because many of the people that then go to Washington, that they campaign to go to Washington, whether you're talking New Hampshire or any other state, mostly, will come out and tell you how they are for smart government. They're for small government, fixing the fiscal issue. They will lie to us all the time to get the vote, and then they get in, and we've seen it again and again here in New Hampshire, and they go rogue, they go and join the other side. So I'm not a part of the Republican Party anymore. I'm an independent.
I prefer going rogue the way Sarah Palin defines
well, there you go.
which is sticking true to your principles and not going the way the party
We
wants
will
you to go.
never get there, though.
And it's an
until
important
we
point
outbid
because
behavior.
Ayotte is running for the vote and support of the political class.
Right.
Which isn't an actual vote, but it's money and power and influence, like we talked about state senators. She's entirely the wrong kind of person to have in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely.
That power structure, that inside the beltway mentality is more important to her than her own state's rights.
Right, than her own constituents.
You can't send somebody to Washington that actually cares about being there, and especially not that cares about the perks and privileges of office there, because they will not do the one thing we need them to do, which is to work with the states to reduce the power and devolve the power of the federal government back where it belongs.
So when I was Speaker of the House, I'd go to Washington quite a bit to try to raise money for the re-election of House Republicans, and I noticed something. This would have been 2011, 2012, really kind of at the height of the recession that we had. And that also, both in my business and for political reasons, see around the country, there was one part of the country that was prosperous during that recession that never had a hiccup in its prosperity, and that was Washington. And you would go into that city, and I'm not sure if you were there, Mike. I know you travel a lot in business.
I've been there. I've been there quite a lot. Disclosure: I can't tell you why. I have been to the DOJ. I've stood in the lobby. I've seen the beaming portraits of Obama and Eric Holder. Trust me, that hurt.
Well, and what hurt me was to go to Nashua and Manchester and see closed up storefronts, companies having trouble hiring people, and to go down to Washington and see construction cranes all over the place. What hurt me was to go to Cincinnati, Ohio, to go to the cities like that and see that jobs were being lost and storefronts were closed and the recession had hit hard. We still haven't recovered from it, and see that the political class in Washington was prospering beyond all this.
Was it the 6 counties? The 6 counties around Washington are the tops amongst the top 10 most prosperous counties in the entire country.
Yeah, I mean, we used to go to where the business centers were, New York, Boston, Atlanta, San Francisco. That's where the prosperity was. Now, as you pointed out, prosperity, the highest incomes in the country are found in the federal employee-dominated counties around Washington.
And yet Washington still is a hellhole in lots of ways. The place is a reason I wouldn't want to be. It's the capital city.
We got about a minute.
It is because it's Democrat.
1 minute.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So where are we going with this? I mean, how's it look?
The
people are talking, and
the bottom line is that Kelly will lose the general because even if people of good intent come out and vote for her because she's better than a Democrat, barely, she doesn't have the enthusiasm. She won't have the base. The liberals that she may have pleased during the 6 years will not vote for her. They'll vote for Hassan, and she will lose. It's as simple as that. She's not rescuable at this time.
I would much rather talk about an alternative than how she's going to lose it, because you know what, folks need to have some sense of hope in this race.
Yeah, and the hope is that we find a good conservative, we rally enough people, enough money behind that conservative. And, the remarkable thing about that meeting this week is the egos that were not in the room. People want a good conservative, and they don't care whether it's themselves.
So where we go, Steve, is to the voters of New Hampshire, to those who would pour money from outside the state into Kelly Ayotte's race as an alternative. We have to convince them that New Hampshire is not a purple state. It is a state that will respond well to constitutional Republican arguments, which I call traditional American values. Kelly Ayotte is going to lose. She clearly will lose. When Republican voters in New Hampshire understand that, when all of Mitch McConnell's K Street buddies understand that, then we're going to have a chance to get a good constitutional Republican in that position.
All right, that's it for this week's show. I want to thank you for coming in and spending some time with us. And this is GrokTALK. We'll be back next week with more news, more conversation, and more GrokTALK. See ya.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. In accordance with Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, some of the material in this program is used under the Fair Use provision of federal copyright law. Sound effects were either created by the producers of the program, found free in the public domain, or are covered under Attribution 3.0. Most of the music on this program comes courtesy of Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.